There appears to be a dramatic drop in marijuana use among the U.S. youth in over a decade, you guys. That's right. Marijuana has emerged as one of the most commonly used illicit substances among adolescents in the United States. Given the rising number of states legalizing adult use marijuana for adults and the decreasing perception of risk among adolescents, tracking trends in youth marijuana use is more crucial than ever. Researchers from Florida Atlantic University's Schmidt College of Medicine conducted a comprehensive study using data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey between 2011 and 2021, which surveyed 88,183 adolescents in grades 9 through 12. Researchers focused on the overall time trends in use of marijuana as well as variance by gender, race, ethnicity, and school grade. These data provide important insights into the changing landscape of marijuana use among American youth. The study published in the Journal of Pediatric Reports reveals that one of the most striking results from the analysis is the significant decrease in the percentage of adolescents reporting current marijuana use. In 2011, 23.1% of adolescents indicated that they were current users, but by 2021, this figure had dropped to 15.8%. Additionally, the percentage of adolescents trying marijuana for the first time before age 13 also saw a notable decline from 8.1% in 2011 to 4.9% in 2021. In 2021, marijuana use was the most prevalent among 12th graders, 22.4%, followed by 11th graders at 18.7%, with lower usage rates in the earlier grades. From 2011 to 2021, all grades experienced a notable decline in current marijuana use, especially among 9th graders, while there was an overall downward trend over the years. There were slight increases in use in 2013 and again in 2019, and in a quote, "While we observed an overall decline from 2011 to 2021 across all grades, older students consistently reported higher usage, particularly 12th graders. This suggests that adolescents advance through high school, they may have greater access to marijuana influenced by more developed peer networks and increased independence," said Patagonia Yoda Kinsua, Ph.D., corresponding author and professor and chair of the Department of Population Health and Social Medicine at FAU Schmidt College of Medicine. In an additional quote, he says, "This trend highlights the need for targeted interventions aimed at older adolescents who are at greater risk of regular marijuana use." One of the most significant findings of this study is the shift it trends by gender, with girls surpassing boys in reported marijuana use by 2021. In 2021, girls reported a higher prevalence of current marijuana use, 17.8%, than boys, 13.6%, and this marks a significant change from 2011, when boys were more likely to use marijuana at 25.9% compared to girls at 20.1%. The convergence of usage rates among genders highlights an evolving dynamic that could reflect broader societal changes in attitudes towards marijuana. The researchers also found variations among Asian, Hispanic, and white adolescents who experienced some of the steepest declines in current use. And in 2021, however, black adolescents reported a notably higher percentage of the current marijuana use at 20.5% compared to white students at 14.8%, Hispanic students at 16.7%, and Asian students at 5.1% counterparts. This indicates a persistent racial disparity in marijuana use among adolescents that warrants further examination, he says. In a quote, they say, "In the U.S., current landscape of marijuana legalization in adults and a complex layer of the issues of adolescent marijuana use as more states continue to legalize adult use marijuana, the accessibility and perceived normalcy of the drug increases, particularly for adolescents who may view its legal status as an indication of safety or acceptability," said Charles M. Hennekins, MD, and FACPM co-author of the first St. Richard Dull Professor of Medicine and Preventative Medicine in the Departments of Medicine and Population Health and Social Medicine. That's a long title. And Senior Academic Advisor at FAU Schmidt College of Medicine. He also says research suggests that marijuana legalization in adults can influence adolescent behavior through their perceptions of less risk as well as increased availability, both of which may impede efforts to reduce adolescent use. The authors emphasize the importance of interventions like parental communication, supervision, and modeling alongside schools offering effective health, education, and fostering a positive school climate to sustain the decline in adolescent marijuana use. Findings from the study highlight the need for ongoing monitoring and intervention strategies to address marijuana use among U.S. adolescents, and by focusing on the specific needs of various demographic groups, including different grade levels, genders, and racial ethnic communities, public health initiatives can more effectively address the risks associated with the adolescent marijuana use and foster healthier outcomes for future generations. And regular or heavy marijuana use during adolescence can adversely affect cognitive development, leading to poor learning, working memory issues, and attention deficits regardless of the educational background or verbal intelligence. Adolescents who use marijuana are 2 to 3.5 times more likely to have lower grade point averages and face a fourfold increase in psychosis diagnosis in adulthood, they say. Research shows that marijuana use disrupts brain function by reducing sympathetic pruning, resulting in increased gray matter volume and decreased communication efficiency in higher, older brain areas. And the study co-authors are Jack Yang, first author, and a second-year FAU medical student, Maria C. Mejia, MD, a professor, and Leah Saka, PhD, and assistant professor, both within the Department of Population Health and Social Medicine at FAU Schmidt College of Medicine. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this, all you parents out there. What do you got to say?
Checks out. If we look at the from Amsterdam and Portugal, which have decriminalized cannabis far before us, when you decriminalization with education, you get less people reaching in to use those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but, and the yes, but is, while I agree with Mathieu St. Germain, that is not the conclusions that these researchers highlighted and or came to through the use of their research. I think it's important to remember that this research is being done in Florida that has a contentious battle over whether there's going to be recreational cannabis in a way that is representative in, whatever it is, 30 other plus states. And what's interesting to me is that these researchers said something that I thought was a little short-sighted in the way that they wrote it. It said that research suggests that marijuana legalization in adults can influence adolescent behavior through their perceptions of less risk as well as increased availability, both of which may impede efforts to reduce adolescent use. Mm-hmm. And yet what Matthew is talking about is the exact opposite, which is that as legalization occurs, the stigma of using cannabis and the perception that there's a risk-taking element when adolescents use cannabis and that they're breaking the law and they're doing something against the grain goes away. And because it goes away, oftentimes there can be less motivation for children to experiment with cannabis. And so these researchers missed that mark, they missed that message, and they didn't actually highlight that. And yet that is something that we've seen in other research. I think the other thing that's interesting about this is when you look at adolescent drug use, and it's okay to put cannabis in the drug bucket as well as alcohol and tobacco. When we look at that, I think it's important for us to look at everything that children or young adults are using and not just one thing, because we've seen decreases in certain things being used and we've seen increases in other things being used. And also that is also impacted by delivery systems. And so vaping, whether that's tobacco or cannabis, I think there's an argument that that is increased to some degree use amongst youth. So what I would really, really think is a much more insightful path towards really evaluating what teenagers are doing is to look at everything that they're using, both type, delivery system and frequency, and to be able to evaluate trends and changes based on that. So yeah, this is and I'm certainly not against reduced use by youth. But I don't think in an election state where we've got this thing going on that we can say that these researchers really dove in and gave us some granular insight.
I mean, well, where are these numbers coming from? Once again, another study, and like this one relies on the truth of teenagers. I don't know how many of you guys have preteen teenagers. I love my son. My son is mostly honest, but I don't believe everything he tells me. Yarrow, does your kid lie ever? Never, right? No.
Not as much as the people who regurgitate the talking points of the other political party.
Who, the Democrats?
Way to fucking find a way to put that in there, Yarrow. Way to find a way to put that in there. Go back on your shelf until we talk to you later. No, I just think I don't trust these numbers. Like, we're relying on a kid to be like, yep, I'm getting high.
I mean, but
these studies are done by anonymous surveys.
Yeah, well,
there's no way to tie a child to the answers.
Yeah, I remember taking these surveys.
What I was speaking on too is over a decade and a half of information from Portugal, not just including surveys, but also including their national health data, because as nationalized healthcare, and over 30 years of data from Amsterdam. So we're not talking about one study. We're literally talking about decades of scientific studies that have been peer-reviewed, published in well-known journals, that also go one-to-one in correlation with national healthcare statistics. It's a very well-known fact that education and decriminalization or legalization lead to less youth usage of cannabis. It's a fact.
So when a researcher like this speculates that the reason why as teenagers get older,
right there,
their cannabis use goes higher. Right. So let me finish this, right? So to Matthew's point, these researchers are suggesting that the reason why 12th graders might be using more cannabis than 11th graders or 10th graders or 9th graders is because there are now legal systems which increase accessibility to cannabis. It is unfortunately research done in a vacuum, because accessibility to cannabis, I would argue, has only changed for a very small portion of the population. There has been plenty of cannabis that has been accessible for a really long time. And so I just wish these researchers had a few more perspectives that they added to the way in which they approach this data.
And the biggest tell is that you said speculates, and speculation is not research or data.
Well, they got.
It is when you say I'm hypothesizing.
They got
it's
all
not
this
data. No,
they got all this from students. So I would quantify it as data, and they're just kind of like summarizing the findings over 10 years, in an accumulated basis.
The findings are data, but the causation and their attempts to contextualize and frame that is an educated guess at best.
I think that's fair, but I think a lot of it has to do with the destigmatization that you see in public opinion around cannabis, and therefore it doesn't have that's totally taboo feeling, and so you're not getting that rush of adrenaline that you're doing something wrong when you're consuming cannabis now that you did get 20 or 30 years ago.
I think it's due to the lack of OG on the streets, and kids are too smart to fall for these bullshit candies that don't get you high.
Yeah, but there was a lot of Bammer weed out there, and I'd say the Bammer weed is just probably same level as like spray packs.
Oh, you know what? So 6% of the populace, it's violently psychedelically high from CBD. I found this out because I am in that 6%. So for 6% of us, brown weed actually gets us far higher than green weed.